Moms, how does it feel like everyone needs something 24/7? Between school drop off, work, and a million little things, it feels like we're always running around doing something. But it never seems like we are catching up. If that sounds familiar, then you've come to the right place because tonight I'm sharing some time saving breaks and hacks for managing this busy March Madness days without feeling completely drained. So, welcome to today's live. That is what we're going to be going over today. If you're watching this in real time, make sure you drop down in the comments and drop live. And if you're watching this on the replay, make sure to type replay so that I can reply hi after all of this is over. Welcome, welcome. I don't know about you all, but March is one of those months where things just pile up. We're running around with our kids. Weather's getting warm. Schedule's getting busy. I don't know about y'all, but my son is now interested in playing sports. So that's new. And that's new. That's definitely something that as your children get older, you definitely want to start paying attention to things that they are interested in. And because we're coming out of winter, schedules are getting packed, work is busy for some of us. And of course, meal prepping, cleaning, all those things are now going to become even more important. So don't worry, I'm with you when it comes to that. But these are some time and game-changing hacks to help us all not feel super crazy and reduce overwhelm, especially if you're a very anxious person. So let me know in the comments, what's the biggest thing that is stealing your time right now? For me, it's just trying to get everything organized for the summer. There's definitely some travel that we want to do. So that's what's definitely been taking up a lot of my time. But let me know in the comments what is taking up your time. So we're going to get started with today's topics, which is March Madness, like I like to call it, for moms. So we're going to be going over 5 ways to elevate your time so that you are able to spend it with your loved ones. And the first one is power session. Now, you might be looking at that like, what is a power session? But if you have a long to-do list, like most moms, it can be very overwhelming. And unless you do time blocking, you can definitely feel like you're not going to be able to get it all done, which is why power sessions are really important, especially if you have really small children or if you're solo parenting for a while. Doing things in 15-minute increments can really go a long way with allowing you to feel like you are accomplished. So instead of stressing out about finding an hour to do things, just start setting a 15-minute timer to tackle one thing at a time. It's amazing how much you can accomplish when you focus on just 15 minutes. One of the things that I have been using is a little timer like this. Okay, and I got this from Amazon. I will link this below after the live. And what I like about this timer is that it has different increments. So it has 1, 3, 5, 10, and 30 minutes. It doesn't have 15. But let's say, for example, you want to fold laundry, or you want to clean the bathroom, or you want to make the bed. You could just put a timer on and it allows you to accomplish that task. I am a very task-oriented person, and I write everything down that I have to do for the day, and then I will categorize it in like a top 3, and then anything that I accomplish after the top 3 things I need to get done for that day is like extra. So that has definitely allowed me to get a lot more done. No, I do this whether it's for like working or if it's something that I need to manage for the family. Definitely making like a list of things that I need to do and then checking it off has really allowed me to accomplish a lot more stuff. There's also like little planners that you can use. I use a mix of a notebook and then Notion. So that's something also to consider. What I will do is at the end of every week, I will go into Notion. I will, check off all the stuff that I've accomplished, make a list of all the things the following week I need to accomplish. And that's definitely allowed me to get stuff done. So the second way of managing being busy is realizing that done is better than perfect. I'm a perfectionist. I want it done. I want it done now. But when you're working with children or when you're working with your family, not everybody can operate like that. Not everybody can complete tasks the way you want them completed. So you definitely have to be mindful that if you can only get to 80%, 80% is better than zero. 10% is better than zero. So if you think about it, how many times do you overthink things, whether it's packing, lunch, organizing their closet, responding to emails at work? Instead of aiming for perfection, just get it done. A small win helps build momentum. And that is something that even as I'm getting older and more seasoned at work and in life, I've really tried to adopt, which is just get it done. You can always go back and tweak things. Like even when I start these live streams, it's not perfect, but it's building consistency with doing them. And so even though there might be like technical difficulties, you just learn from them and you keep going. And you realize that even if it's not perfect, you did it. You can check it off and you can go do other stuff. So it's also about the journey too of knowing that you did it and that you might not think it's perfect, but other people think it's just fine. So I always look at it that way too, where even though for me it's like it has to be grade A, for other people, your grade A is like their grade A plus. So that's definitely something too to keep in mind. Even with children, like children, my 5-year-old doesn't know that I, forgot to do this thing. They just know that whatever they're looking for is done. So also it helps take the pressure off of when you're doing something for your kid, like does it need to be perfect for a 5-year-old? Do they even know like what perfection for this looks like? So when I start to reframe how perfection looks, I'm able to get a lot more done. Because at the end of the day, if your kids don't notice that, to them they're wearing socks. Like, yes, to me, it's like, oh my God, he's not wearing matching socks, but he has socks on. That's an example of it not being perfect. I mean, he has socks on. So if he goes play, his feet aren't in the shoe, they might not match, but he has socks on. And that is the lesson that I always try to remember. So the next topic that we're going to go over for tip 3 is the 2-minute rule. If something takes less than 2 minutes, do it immediately. That includes responding to an email, wiping down a counter, putting your shoes away. Again, it's all about taking little steps to make big strides in completing tasks. What I have tried to do, especially during the weekday where we're just a lot more busy, while my son, of course, this summer will be in summer school and then he's going to be doing sports. So it's really taking this time now, like, okay, what can we go through that's really quickly? I can put his shoe over there. I can throw this in the trash. I can move this over here. Even with work, can I say yes or no to this email? Even with when I'm recording or editing content, is this something that I can just do really quickly, or is this going to take more brain power? Because it's always about the brain power, right? So if it's something that you can accomplish super easy, just do it. Put the plate in the trash, put the napkin in the trash, put the toilet paper back where it's supposed to be, that stuff. And I know it can be very annoying, especially because when you have small kids, you're like telling them over and over and over and over. But sometimes it's just easier just to do it and then just tell them about it after you did it. So keep those things in mind too if you're running into a space where you're like, ah, I have like 30 things to do. Out of those 30 things, what can you do right now that's super easy? And what's going to take time where you're going to have to like add a timer? So just think about those things as you're going on throughout your day trying to accomplish tasks. Tip 4 is meal prepping. Now, I'm not a huge meal prepper. I hate leftovers. My husband does a pretty good job of meal prepping, especially for my son. What we try to do is think about meals like earlier in the week that we can cook, that we know that the next day we can just make for him for lunch. Not everything is going to be easy for him, for my 5-year-old to eat at school. So it's definitely thinking about meals throughout the week of what we can make so that when we prepare it for lunch or even dinner the next day, it's something that we know we can do. Because we have a 5-year-old, a lot of preschoolers, kindergartners, they're very picky with their food. So it's not as easy to meal prep. But what I will say, if there are dishes or items that you know your child eats frequently, definitely buying them more often and then just knowing what days of the week you want to pack it for them and then adjusting accordingly depending on what you guys are eating throughout the week. You don't need to meal prep like a professional. Just keep it simple. So pre-chopped veggies, go to grab and go snacks, double up on meals so leftovers work the next day. So that's, again, definitely something to caveat that a lot of us with preschool kids, small children, we're not able to do like the professional meal planning that you see like fitness people do. But definitely thinking about, okay, if my son likes Lunchables, then buying Lunchables and then pairing it with like other items to help make the transition for when they're eating snacks and lunch a lot easier. And it takes the stress off too of thinking about what to make them constantly because at this age, they're still very, very picky eaters. The last tip is delegation. Now, I have a hard time with delegating because 9 times out of 10, when I handle it, it's going to get done the way that I want to get done. But I also have realized that going back to done is better than perfect. When I delegate something for like my husband to do or for my son to do, I just know it's not going to be done exactly the way that I would do it. But as long as the task is done, that's one less thing you have to worry about. At this age, teaching your children it's all about delegation. So you're going to have to eventually release some control over some of the tasks that they are doing so that you are able to relieve the stress that comes as they are aging. So when I think about delegating like a boss, it's like we do way too much for ourselves. If your children are old enough, give them small tasks and let's normalize asking our partners for help without feeling guilty. Again, I have a hard time doing this. I guess because I'm an oldest child and I'm a fixed sign, I'm a Taurus. Our season is coming up for those who are Tauruses. We just have to get through the Aries. So it's really challenging to delegate because it's like if I give it to them, it's not going to work the way I want it to work, or it's not going to run as smoothly as if I was doing it. But then you have to release that control because it can be very debilitating. It can make you feel very overwhelmed, and we don't need that. We already have enough stress, and as your children age, it's going to get a lot more stressful. So just being able to delegate tasks to your partners or people in your village is going to be super important. And don't feel guilty. I think I've always felt guilty. So even this is something that for me that's an ongoing practice of like you can ask for help, you can delegate, and if the person that you're asking is not able to do it, then I'm sure they will work with you on a solution that will allow you to get what you need to get done in a space that is going to be amicable for everybody involved. So to recap, these are three kind of main categories when looking at how to manage being busy. The first you want to look at are time-saving activities and routines. So always try to group things together that make it super easy. Group those together. That way you're accomplishing all those tasks at once versus doing one thing and then coming back to it. It's just easier to do all the things that are similar. You want to streamline household tasks. So if things are in different categories like laundry, so anything cleaning related, you want to kind of put that in a category, putting things by floor. So if you live in a multi-level home, doing things on one floor versus another floor, think about it like that way. Just try to streamline tasks so that you're not doing things all over the place. And then you also want to manage me time and make yourself a priority. That's where delegation is really important. It's very important that you're setting boundaries and limitations on things that you can and cannot do. And this also goes with your children as well. You know, as your children get older, we all, even as, moms, we have to figure out a way of balancing between what we know we need to teach our children in order to become more independent, but also be very, very mindful of the fact that it has to be age appropriate. Same thing with asking people in our village to come and support us. It can be challenging, but if we are not mentally healthy and stable for people in our community, then it's going to be noticeable with our children, and that is not going to be helpful for anybody involved. So those are just how to look at when it comes to managing your time and being busy this month. And so now I'm going to go into our FAQ of just questions that are asked often when it comes to time management and moms in general. All right, so the first question that I'm going to dive into is, how do I find time for myself when my schedule is already packed? And one of the things that I know that has worked for me is having non-negotiable times. Sometimes it's coming up with realistic strategies on what pockets throughout the day that you can delegate for yourself. Sometimes that's after everybody goes to bed. You might have to just stay an hour up late so you can scroll TikTok. Or maybe that's scheduling time in between doing tasks, like maybe at work everybody has a lunchtime between 12 and 2, and maybe you just take from 12 to 12:15 of like you're not doing anything, and then you go on lunch. So it's trying to carve out minutes throughout your day where you know that you can have that for yourself and stick to those times. If it's waking up early, I know a lot of moms wake up before everybody. I personally can't do that because I'm like a vampire. I'm up all night in general. So I definitely try to have me time at the end of the day. But if waking up before then so that you can have time to yourself works, it is possible. It does require doing a little bit more maneuvering, but it's possible. And I've definitely do that. And I've made it clear to my family, like, I'm done for the evening. I'm clocking out, and that's it. And usually they understand it and they don't really get an attitude or press it. So that's something to consider too. The second most common question is, what's the best way to meal prep without spending hours in the kitchen? If you have small children, you really don't have to do a bunch of meal prepping. You just ask them. Or if your child, like my child, for example, he won't really tell us certain stuff that he likes, but my husband and I were able to pick up on it if it's something he asks for all the time. If we see that we buy it and he eats it, then we know that's something that we can buy over and over again. So there's definitely ways of paying attention to what your child is eating and using that as like a benchmark of what to buy more of. As your children get to middle school and high school, it'll be a little easier to meal prep, but I know for little ones, because their appetite and their palate is so 50-50, it's really hard to buy and buy massive amount of food and then package it up. So definitely just make sure that if you know your child is eating something consistently, for example, my son likes little pancakes or waffles in the morning, and then we know he will drink a glass of orange juice. So just try to build in those healthy habits of foods that you know your child will eat, and do that consistently so that you're not having to buy all this wasteful food. As your child gets older, it will become more apparent of things that they like, and then you're able to buy food and then meal prep out that way. Some foods for children, you really don't want them eating past like the 3-day mark with meal prepping. So that's something to kind of also be mindful of. Some food is just like, do you really want them, if you cook it on a Sunday, do you really want them eating it Thursday or Friday? Some foods might not work for your children in that capacity like it would for an adult. So think about that too. Like, kids are not going to eat chicken 5 days a week. Some may, but most children aren't, unless they're an athlete and they understand the importance of eating high protein diet, right? So that's another way of looking at it too, where just buy stuff your kids like. A lot of times the stuff they like is packaged, and then just making sure that you're consistently buying those things so that you're not cooking all Sunday. Especially with the weather getting warmer, no one is going to be home on Sundays cooking a 5-course meal only for your child to bring it back on Monday because they didn't eat it. Another question that is often asked is, how do I stop feeling like I'm always behind on everything? You're never gonna feel like that. All you can do is make your daily list, prioritize the top 3 things. It's always going to be a running list. Just like at work, there's always going to be work to do. In your home, there's always going to be something to do, especially when you have small kids. Until your kids get to a point where they're more independent, it's always going to be something to do. So you have to just let go of that guilt of feeling behind. It's going to be it's just going to be endless. And once I release myself of that, because even at work, I'm like, oh my God, I have so much to do and I have to get it done today. And it's like, no, you don't. It'll be there the next day. Everyone will be fine. Same thing with your family. If it's not done today, unless it's something that has like a hard deadline, it's fine. It'll get done the next day or within the week. But also, too, if there's certain commitments that you've made to yourself and there's certain commitments that you've made for certain projects, you definitely want to make sure you're getting those done. But if it's just everyday tasks that you have to do, it's always going to be something else. Something else may pop up the next day that you have to do. So just, you're always going to feel like you're not caught up, and you just have to be okay with it. Even if you're not, you just have to let go of feeling that anxious over just things that you just can't constantly monitor with your day-to-day schedule. The last is, what's the easiest way to keep my home organized without spending all my free time cleaning? Girl, I don't know. Look, I only have one kid and a dog. I can just imagine if you have multiple children and boys, I mean, you clean up 20 seconds after you clean up, they're scurrying over to pick up a toy and they're throwing it all over the place. So that's another thing too, where unless you're cleaning up daily, you don't really have the bandwidth to, it could take all day, depending on how big your space is, to clean up. What I have found is you just pick an area a day to clean. Today is the kitchen. Tomorrow is the living room. The next day is your child's room. Just pick a day and focus on that. But that's really it. Until your kids get old enough, I think we all struggle with it being a disaster all the time. Having a cleaning company is a luxury. So if you're able to have someone come in once a week, bi-weekly, weekly, daily, that's great. But I think for most families and most moms, we're doing a lot of the household cleaning ourselves. So just pick a space per day and just know that it has to be low maintenance so that you're not stressed out, because you can spend an entire weekend cleaning up your space. I've tried to do that and it just hurt my back. So my husband's like, "No, you can't do all this cleaning in one day. You need to pick a space, clean this space, and then just do it daily." And you will find that if you have a schedule of just places that you clean, you will feel not as overwhelmed, because it's all about those small tasks of, okay, it's going to take me 30 minutes to clean the kitchen. So you'll clean the kitchen and I'm talking about deep cleaning, like deep clean the kitchen, and then, you've deep cleaned the kitchen for the day. And then you just try to explain to the family, like, "Look, I don't clean this up. Don't come in here messing stuff up." So at least that's what I try to do. Like, and everybody knows that if I've lit a candle, that area is closed. Do not enter. We are done. Okay. So I hope you have enjoyed the live today. The biggest takeaway that I want to call out for the live is that small tweaks will equal big wins. Managing busy days doesn't mean doing more. It just means doing more smarter. With a few small shifts, you can free up hours in your week. Okay? We've got this. If you feel like today's tips helped you, make sure you are following me here on YouTube. So make sure you're subscribing. I have more strategies coming your way. I do these lives every week. And next Sunday, our live is going to be talking about spring illness prevention in kids. We're talking about allergies, cold, and flu. So if you missed any part of today's live, a replay will be available. So make sure you catch up when you have time. Thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight. I definitely appreciate it. And we got this. And I will see you all next week. Have a wonderful week. First week of spring officially. And we will talk next week.